Hello, my friends. This is Deepak Chopra, and I have the honor and privilege of speaking to two of my friends. I've known them for over a decade, and they live in Moscow, husband and wife, Oleg Volkosh and Natasha, his wife. It's great to have you, Oleg, and great to have you, Natasha. How are you?
We're good. Thank you.
And right now, you're both in Moscow, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So, Oleg, last time I came was over, I don't know, it was 10 years ago?
Yeah.
And then we met in Hawaii for the Seduction of Spirit course. And Natasha, you came to Europe when we were doing our Explorers. I just want everyone to know that Oleg and Natasha are long-term friends. When I last came to Moscow, he was in charge of a marketing agency, which was international. I don't know if that's still the case. And also, Oleg was, I think, the president of YPO in Russia, or senior person in YPO in Russia. So let's start with where are you right now? You're both in Moscow, right?
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how's the feeling right now? How are you feeling, Oleg, about yourself, about your family, about the world? What is the feeling at the emotional level right now? Because obviously the world is in crisis, not just Russia, Ukraine, the entire world is in crisis, and these conflicts are happening everywhere. China and Taiwan, India and Pakistan and Afghanistan and Syria, you name it. There's no country that is not experiencing conflict. I wrote this book about 10 years ago, Peace is the Way, about how to introduce peace practices in collective consciousness, because the moment you take one side or the other, you polarize and make it even more difficult. So, Oleg, would you like to share with me what your feelings are right now, what you think the vision could be for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world?
Yes, Deepak, thank you. First of all, right now, I do feel a lot of gratitude for you, because this experience and these knowledges and these practices, which we've done together with you, which we've done under your leadership, it's what really now helping me to stay balanced and to do consciously what I'm doing right now for me, for my family, and for my company and people around me. So without that, I would say, learnings or preparations, I think it wouldn't be so good inside of me right now. So that's why the first, it's a big gratitude for the time which we had together. And when you was in Moscow and when I was in Hawaii together with you and with Tim. But the second, it's also about vulnerability, because this time definitely brought a lot of, different emotions, cases, circumstances, etc. That's why this kind of vulnerable feeling inside of me, it's also very big right now. But again, I'm managing not just for me, I'm managing this also for my family, for my parents, and for my team and the company, which is still international, as you mentioned. And after your great vision that we need to transform our local Russian communication group into the international business, into the global business, at that period of time, honestly, I didn't understand you well. But when it's happened, when we became the part of the very big international group right now, I understood that it was a really point for the transformation that period of time. So that's why now, yes, we are part of this international family, also having a lot of discussions and exchanging of emotions and ideas, what we can do together as international group in this situation, also helping me to feel this unity, to feel this international different point of views, but with very good support and unity with people.
Natasha, I know that you're very involved in consciousness research and the idea of consciousness as a field. And when this kind of turbulence happens in the world, it's obviously a deeply wounded collective consciousness that is in the depths of our collective being. So any crisis like this, where there is a lot of fear right now, a lot of anxiety, a lot of people have anger, a lot of people have hostility, a lot of people feel guilt, shame, a lot of people feel humiliated. I'm not just talking about one country, it's happening internationally. And a lot of people are experiencing a lot of mental distress and depression, which, as you know, is associated with chronic illness, depression, inflammation, chronic disease, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, cerebrovascular accidents. These are all connected to an inflamed biology, which comes from this feeling of separation, from anxiety, from not being connected with life in general. And I see that happening everywhere. But right now, of course, the focus of attention is Russia and Ukraine and so on. And yet we need to somehow overcome this by not taking sides, but because the moment you take sides, you polarize it even more. And everybody has their own opinion on who's right and who's wrong. I have my own. I'm not going to share it right now, but I feel very protective for you and for the rest of the world and for us here in the United States, because everything is connected to everything else. You have one crisis anywhere in the world, and immediately it becomes global, because we now know that consciousness is a field. And if the field is turbulent, then human behavior becomes turbulent and violent. And before we know it, there is a collective rage, insanity that overwhelms everyone, even the ones who are innocent and actually far away in the world. If consciousness is a field, how can we, given your interest in this, you've been doing this for a lot of years, teaching meditation and reflection and intention and manifestation. Is it possible for us to turn this around by participating in a more neutral way, by introducing basically empathy, feeling what people are feeling who are suffering, compassion, desire to alleviate suffering, and then some kind of action based on love, because without love, action is useless, is irrelevant, and action without love is irrelevant, and love without action is also meaningless. But when we have love in action, then hopefully we can bring back the memory of wholeness and heal ourselves. So give me your take on this, please, Natasha, right now, as you sit there in Moscow.
Yes, basically whatever you just said, it's what I put on air live every day, word by word, what you said. I have almost nothing to add. I'm trying to lead the population of Russia outside of this duality crisis, because you correctly said that this is a crisis of duality that we need to overcome and to go into the real freedom. The state with that we don't know yet. Well, we are fighting for freedom, but basically the freedom is a state that just needs to be entered into. And the point of entrance into the state of freedom is overcoming the duality in the triangle of aggressor, victim, the savior. In my perspective, the whole world is in this triangle that lives inside of each person. Inside of us live whatever is happening in the world. And what I've been trying to do hard, and I had several sleepless nights because, again, I'm going on air and trying to, first of all, help people, really help to overcome all these emotions that generate this very tense emotional field of something that's been suppressed. You should remember, that this part of the country are coming from a lot of emotional suppression. And the emotional suppression usually results in actions which goes not from the position of love. No? It's like an emotional release. So my job that I'm doing every day within my consciousness network, because reLove that I told you many years ago that I was forming today is a consciousness network, is the network of the people who realize that the answers are not in taken sides, that the answers lies from within, and only from within and from the peace within, with all different type of instruments, like working with emotions, through breath, through meditation, we can come to the unity, but unity first within ourselves, through the unity outside. In my point of view, the biggest problem right now that we're dealing with is with the separation, the wrong side of separation, right? It's this moment where the world should come together. And unfortunately, it's coming through such a painful conflict between two countries that is almost one. We've been, it's a Slavic nation, it's been Soviet Union. It's really, yes, we are different. We're different as any person is different from anybody else. But the conflict that is right now taking place, it's demonstrating the conflict in every person, and it does involve the world, but from a different perspective that is being pictured. And what I'm trying to do, again, first, practical ways to overcome the fear that resonates and establish the emotional field that leads to the additional kinds of aggressive actions that increment the aggression in the real world where the people physically suffer. And show the people the bigger perspective, the metaphysical perspective, in the country where we've been deprived of faith, of basic principle of the universe, which is faith. It's very difficult to achieve. It's basically to recall who we are by jumping through the huge gap of being in just mind, being in the ideology of such activity that mind produces that causes actions that are not based on heart, on love, that based on fear. And it's challenging because what I'm seeing right now, again, it's fear. Fear dominates. Fear of how we are going to live by heart. Nobody knows what live by heart, and even though people who say they know how to live by heart, they didn't have experience in the overall size of their life. Every hour in Russia, we have the notice in the news that the world is being cutting out Russia from this, from that, from consumer goods, from flights, from everything. This is basically, we're going to complete isolation. And the only way right now to deal with it is to show people about this blissful solitude, where salvation could be reached from within. Because the worst that could happen right now is to achieve the aggressive isolation, to feel ourselves trapped. And then the other part of aggression could come out. So this is what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to avoid this worst scenario that will split us even further. Again, I'm thankful to you because whatever you just said in the beginning, that's what I say, only in Russian. And I think right now the language is already universal. You said it in English, I'm saying this in Russian every day, and people understand it, and it reaches people's heart. And, you've been with me all these years in my organization. We were the only Unity translate into Russian every meditation that you published, the cycle meditation, and the people admire your work and people hear you. And even though we do translation, people listen to you in English, but they feel you by heart, which definitely says that the word of love is universal, the language of love.
So, Natasha, there are some principles that have been used in conflict resolution, no matter how severe the conflict is, no matter how entrenched people are in their ideological framework. I did mention that in this book, which is becoming much more relevant. But here are some principles of conflict resolution that I think are very needed right now. Let me share them with you. Number one, treat your adversary, whoever that adversary is, with respect. If you don't treat them with respect, you lose them in the first minute. That's rule number one. Rule number two, recognize that in any conflict, anywhere, there's the perception of injustice on all sides. Otherwise, there would not be a conflict. Number three, be prepared to forgive and ask for forgiveness. Number four, refrain from belligerent behavior, which happens frequently with world leaders, East and West. It doesn't matter. Either you're on our side or you're not on our side. So that's very important that we refrain from belligerence. Number five, that we actually use the techniques of emotional and social intelligence, which in the yogic tradition are the Yamas and Niyamas. The first Yama is actually about social intelligence, which says when we are perfectly established in peace consciousness, all beings around us cease to feel hostility. And the best we can do is bring our presence of peace everywhere. Number six, we have to refrain from stereotyping, because that's a tendency that we all have, that all so-and-so are bad, all so-and-so are good. That stereotyping doesn't work and does never reflect reality. Number seven, I would say, recognize that everybody is coming from fear. All sides are coming from fear. And eight, in this moment at least, one cannot take ideological sides, because ideological war never ends, never ends. And finally, don't prove the other person wrong, because the moment you'll make them lose face, you lose them altogether. These are very fundamental principles of conflict resolution. And at the end of the book, I also have some peace practices, which basically every day we can infuse consciousness with our intentionality for peace. And that's the best we can do. So that's the moment, I think, what we can do is take each day as it comes, and, starting with every day of the week, one day being peace, second day thinking peace, third day feeling peace, fourth day speaking peace, fifth day creating peace, sixth day being the presence of peace all the time. If we use these practices in what we call the consciousness field, then if consciousness is what we think it is, the fundamental field of reality, and that our thoughts and behaviors and expressions and emotions are actually a download of what is happening in the collective consciousness, then we have a chance, and peace can be the way. And right now, we need that critical mass, irrespective of who or where. So Oleg, I really was very grateful for all the things that Natasha shared. How is the business at the moment, the marketing business? Is it continuing, or you have some situation right now where we have to kind of hold things off till things become clearer? Obviously, the sanctions not only affect Russians, they affect everybody else, because, trade is affected. And trade these days is interdependent. Everybody is dependent on everybody else. So what do you think, Oleg, would be a good way forward from a marketing standpoint? You know, we can market peace just as the way people market other things, including drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and weapons. This is an opportunity for us to market peace and make peace the way for everybody. And you might be in a unique position right now in this adversity where you can come up with creative solutions, because you know there is now social science to say that if we have shared vision, if we complement each other's strengths, if we connect with each other emotionally and spiritually, and if we have the idea of how we can help each other through attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance, then there may be actually an opportunity here to move internationally in that direction, which we desperately need, a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. Because the way things are going internationally, I think it spells extinction. You know, human beings have been violent because of their reptilian brain for 300 million years. There is a tendency for violence. We have a reptilian brain. We have an emotionally immature brain also, which is only 100 million years. Our rational brain is only 4 million years old. So we are ruled by atavistic impulses and the reptilian brain. But could this not be an opportunity to find creative solutions through maximum diversity and creativity that comes not from one place in the world, but the whole planet? Could we create a planetary movement for creative solutions to not only violence, but social justice, economic justice, sustainability, health, and joy? Could this be your next marketing effort, since you launched international marketing many years ago from Russia?
Yeah, as always, Deepak, I'm listening to you very, how to say, carefully and very, focus on what you are saying right now, because again, in my experience 10 years ago, your vision changed not just my life, but it's changed my business, my company, and a lot of things. Back to your question, the first part of your question, yes, I have to say that the business and economical situation right now, it's really tough, because we're experiencing the most heavy pressure on our companies, on our financial system. The supply chain was almost destroyed. The banking system to work with the international banks, it's also under big, limitations, etc., etc. Of course, I'm sure that we will go through it, because this is not first time, and definitely we had a lot of experiences already how to go through it without major losses. But the second part of your question, and actually I'm grateful for this idea, that especially marketing and communication companies needs to stay now focused on a resolution for this part of the informational war, which is happening now in all social medias. And this is definitely not just about Ukraine and Russia. It's covering whole world right now. And unfortunately, in this part of the war, it's millions of people right now. It's millions of pains. It's millions of absolutely unconscious, how you're calling this, just animal reactions, who is bad, who is wrong. And of course, we were always happy to support the social medias as a way for the communication, for the marketing, and for the human communication. But now, especially in this field, we can see tons of negative, which making even more painful situation for people in each country in the world, I would say. So that's why definitely, if we would talk about the impact and the responsibility and social responsibility of companies who are working like my company in communication field, Definitely, we thinking first of all how to change and how to people to survive, emotionally survive during the time, to be just surrounded by millions of the informational attacks to themselves, to their hearts. That is the really painful situation everywhere. But secondly, what you just mentioned, I fully agree that also we need to find the way in the creative solutions how to start to build this peace in the hearts of people around the world during this event which we are facing right now. That is the big topic. That is the big topic, and definitely we will go to it.
So Oleg, in my work, I've always realized that when you take conflicting sides and bring them together with economic incentives, that creative solutions work. And that right now, marketing, basically economic incentives. If there is peace now or soon, then 5 years, what does that mean to the economy? What does that mean to the children and their education? Does that mean to health? What does that mean to sustainability? We can pick each of these ideas: health, joy, emotions, economy, and sustainability, and justice, and say, this is how we market peace. There's a solution, creative solution, that comes collectively. But if the war continues, just have a vision of what will happen, or conflict continues, not just Russia, Ukraine, everywhere. Then what happens in 5 years to our emotional health, to our mental health, to our physical health, to our economic health, to the education of our children, and ultimately everything else that's happening in the world, because it's so interdependent with mass migrations and pandemics that either we all survive or nobody will survive. That's the marketing I think we need from people who have international influence and can use social media, refraining from ideological discussions and conflict, but coming up with creative solutions in all these different areas. And if you think that's an idea that's worth pursuing, then let's collectively market that internationally, while at the same time, Natasha does the amazing work that she's doing in the consciousness field. So that's what I have to say today. Before we close,
just interrupt you just very quickly, the remark.
Yeah, no, I want you to give your last message.
Okay.
Continue.
Whatever you're saying right now, the marketing of the consciousness, I've been doing this for all these years within the reLove organization, through the Instagram, through Facebook, through everything. And whatever you called, I've been doing this. And the problem I face, because I have creative solutions, I work mostly with the young part of the population. In my audience, it's 20 to 45. We are doing an amazing campaign. We've been doing this. And the biggest problem I faced that we stayed quite small, because we were trying to reach to many organizations like you right now, saying to Oleg to help us to distribute the peace, the peaceful consciousness. But nobody was interested, because everybody were interested in the different machine of the structural rates of money making. And for all these years, I've been hitting myself, I've been bumping into the mirror of, yeah, you're doing a very nice job. You know how it is, right? Or you're a nice meditative community. Or you're talking about conscious, nice to hear. But nobody heard that I've been predicting this for several years. And I was dealing with the feeling that nobody was helping, nobody was seeing the effort of the recuperation of what I call the real, truthful feminine energy. Because what world have to come to is this female energy of compassion, of understanding, of wisdom, of intuition, something that's been ignored. And right now, I really hope that people will hear me, that even him will hear me, that we need a help from that structure that's been created through the patriarchal society, and it's quite huge. And right now, when it's coming to collapse of the ego war, help to establish the balance between the other part that we've been deprived for many centuries historically, because this part needs to come to the balance, then the world will come to the balance. You know, all the actions in the business, in politics needs to be done from this subtle part of what I call the feminine energy, the truthful feminine energy. So thank you very much for mentioning this. Hopefully there will be more help and more people look at people like me who's been trying to tell these simple truths before this collapse would start. But everybody have to pass.
Beautiful
Go through own path, and I'm accepting my own path.
Beautiful intention, beautiful summary. Any final message from you, Oleg? We can continue this conversation, but I also want your audience to know that we have a website called www.neveralone.love. www.neveralone.love. I would encourage Natasha to create something similar for Russia, and we can cooperate. We have four things we do every day: attention, affection, appreciation, acceptance. And our goal is to create a critical mass of love in action. So please check out this website, and maybe you can participate in this too, Natasha. www.neveralone.love.
Really happy to do cooperation. Yes, it's reLove. That's what we call reLove, you know.
Yeah.
And we also have our side. Probably it's time to bring this bridge between both sides.
Correct. So last, any final message, Oleg?
Yeah, from my side, Deepak, again, the biggest gratitude to you that you just called me yesterday and we organized everything so fast, because now it's very crucial for all people around the world, including, of course, my country, to go through the level of the self-development. And now it's even more important. It was always important, right, as you teach us, but now it's crucially important to understand who we are, what we are doing, why we're here, and how we can make a peace. Thank you for it.
So that's a great conclusion. I will reconnect